Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And glad to have with us on our live line opinion Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano. Tracy Mitrano, thanks for phoning in.
Hi, Brian.
Well, Tracy Mitrano, let's start out with the Democrats running for president. Do you have a favorite there that you'd like to announce, or if not, your thoughts on how the race is going for the Democrats in the presidential run?
Well, it's interesting that we have emerging a distinction between the more left and more center group of candidates, Warren and Sanders on the former, and Buttigieg and Klobuchar on the latter. I think for our district, Klobuchar is really a good candidate. She knows how to work across the aisle. She has the ability to get things done, and honestly, I identify with that. My reputation in my professional life is I get results, and she has too if you look at her record in the Senate. And I don't know, I just think she's a nice, middle-of-the-road personality. Now, having said that, I'm identifying her as very, very good for this district, and I'm not officially saying anything about anyone as an official endorsement. But I do really appreciate her, and I was pleased to see her make that leap. She had such a stellar performance, especially in the closing of the debate last Friday night, that evoking of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who, by the way, is, a big, big favorite of mine, almost moved me to tears. And I thought she was so sincere when she said, if you don't know how, if you're having problems making your paycheck stretch to meet your needs, I know you. And that whole line was just so powerful. So that's my thought right now. Obviously, we will see. And then the wild card, of course, is Bloomberg.
If you could pick a ticket, if you could pick the two candidates on the ticket, president and vice president, who would you choose?
This is not an endorsement. It is...
I know. I put you in the situation where you answer the question.
Yeah. Bloomberg and Klobuchar.
Interesting. Talking to Democrat Tracy Mitrano, who's running against Congressman Tom Reed. Reading from Tracy Mitrano's Twitter page. It says, and this is from 2 days ago, using September 11th to score points is a new low even for Congressman Tom Reed. Is he enjoying this? Instead of always stoking anger, let's find solutions. And she says she's with Congressman Brian Higgins and calling on the state and federal governments to negotiate in good faith for a return to a reliable border operations. Now, the original tweet that you're referring to from Congressman Tom Reed was critical of Governor Andrew Cuomo. It said something to the effect of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what the original Reed tweet said was that Reed could not believe that Governor Cuomo, who lived through 9/11, would be in favor of the green light law. Your response there?
Well, let's get a little context. This contest between Governor Cuomo and Congressman Reed is big theater, and I think that Mr. Reed is lining himself up for, actor of the year. Not that our governor is not, but it's Mr. Reed whom I am most concerned about for his neglect of taking care of this district for 10 years. And so this notion that Tom Reed is going to run for governor, I only interpret at this stage, Brian, as a congressional campaign tactic. Why? Statistically, when Governor Cuomo is on the ballot as the up-ballot candidate for governor, in this district, the Democrat scores 5 points lower. And Mr. Reed wants to keep Governor Cuomo on the ballot because he's really worried about what's going to happen on November 3rd this year. And he wants every little point he can get, including those reflexive votes that some people make for any variety of reasons that if you want we can talk about, to vote against Governor Cuomo and then for the Republican candidate. So it's a campaign tactic right now, and he's really in full throttle with the performance art of it. when it actually comes to the issues, let me say this. First of all, the green light law, for whatever its opportunities and distractions, would not have done nothing to prevent 9/11. And so using the politics of fear, which is Reed's specialty, he is munging two very different and distinct ways of national security that we have to protect ourselves. Second, the idea that selectively the Justice Department is going to go after New York State and not 30-some other states that have the same kinds of laws will tell you everything you need to know about how the president, supported by Mr. Reed enthusiastically, is trying to punish New York. And so here is the point. Why do we have a congressman that keeps going against the interests of the people in this state? That affects trade, it affects travel, it affects the hospitality industry. This is the same congressman that designed the 2017 Tax Cut Acts, and that includes the SALT tax that goes against the people of this district and the people of this state. I think Mr. Reed is so enamored with the attention of President Trump that he, who already really did nothing for this district, now is totally blind to the adverse effect that support of some of these punitive actions is having on all of us. So why don't I leave it at that? And I'm happy to go into more detail if you like.
Talking to Democrat Tracy Mitrano, here's another of your Twitter statements. It says, in this chapter of The Tale of Two Toms, Congressman Tom Reed complains about the federal debt crisis he created with the 2017 tax cuts. How do Reed and Trump want to fix that? By cutting $480 billion from your Medicare and Social Security, something they both promised they would not do.
My reaction is that
yes, I guess that was the question. Elaborate a little bit more on your tweet there, if you could.
Yeah, let's take it in chunks. If I find that even people who always vote for Reed, for example, take someone who is a single issue voter on Second Amendment, and they say Mr. Reed gets the A rating from the NRA. That's all they need to know. They don't even want to hear my position on it, and they're going to vote for Reed. And I talk to many people around the district who will say something like that. I will then say to them, all right, but let's just talk for a couple more minutes. What, apart from the Second Amendment, do you think of Mr. Reed? And let me tell you what they say. He's not accountable. He's a phony. He's two-faced. And he's an opportunist. So what I mean by the tale of two Toms is many people seem to have recognized that he will show up for a photo opportunity, for example, with Meals on Wheels people, and make sure he gets that photo next to the woman who's got a carrier or some type of a crutch, and then the next day vote against the budget that includes Meals on Wheels. He will say anything to your face that is either ambiguous or, in fact, supportive, and then turn around and, with full hypocrisy, go ahead and vote against you. So Mr. Reed promised middle-class people $1,600, Brian, after the 2017 tax cut. You know how he got that number? He averaged vertically. What do I mean by vertically? He averaged the $69,000 on average that the 1% was getting back with middle and lower class tax brackets instead of averaging horizontally. What do I mean by horizontally? Taking the middle class tax bracket and averaging across rather than adding in the $69K that the 1% gets. We're nowhere near the $1,600, and Mr. Reed must know that. So now we have a deficit that is going up to $2 trillion that will fall on the heads of young people like yourself and my children and my grandchildren with no regard whatsoever to the havoc economically that this tax structure is causing, and now they want to add on to it. It's unbelievable, and people really need to be thinking hard about what it all means for themselves, but also for the future of our families and our communities. And so essentially what happens, once again, the rich are going to get richer, the poor are going to get poorer, and the middle class is going to get crushed because we're the only ones that have the money then to put in the kitty to pay for it. And I do believe that there is a hoodwinking kind of sensibility in how Mr. Trump or Mr. Reid rolls these ideas out. They play on racial division. They play on class division. They hyper exaggerate fraud in social services and instead of looking at, in fact, the deficits internally that our social service equivalencies create. What do I mean by that? Hospitals. You've got St. James opening up pretty soon there in your area. Watch out, because every hospital I know has a heck of a time trying to make their own ends meet when they are not being compensated properly through Medicare and Medicaid. And then you've got the inefficient and ineffective waste of people, 30 million of them nationally, who aren't on any program and yet show up and get the services that the hospital pays for, the individual does not, because we have the most inefficient system for health care in the entire developed world. And so I find in a word, this budget plan and Mr. Reid's inevitable support of it to be highly disingenuous, just like I find Mr. Reid in most areas of politics.
Talking with Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano. And I see on your website, Mitrano2020.com, you've got a couple of events coming up on the 24th and 25th of this month in Chautauqua County, one in Westfield, one in Jamestown. Wondering, you've done a lot of events throughout the district, Tracy Mitrano. How have they been going so far, your visits in the towns?
Very, very well. 2 weeks ago, we did a 5-day, 5-city tour. Dunkirk, Jamestown, Olean, Corning, and Geneva on healthcare. And I will be releasing probably sometime this week, if not beginning of next week, my position on healthcare. But I've heard from all different kinds of people. I'll just give you an example. In Corning, there was an individual who came in from Horseheads. He said he's never voted for me, but he is sick and tired of Congress and his congressman in particular not doing anything to help with the affordability of health care. And he's absolutely right. 70 times plus, Mr. Reid has voted against any plan for affordable health care, and that includes pre-existing conditions. Here's another example of hypocrisy, Brian. In December, there was a bill known as H.R. 3 that would give the federal government the authority to negotiate prescription drug prices in the Medicaid and Medicare program. They already have that ability, by the way, with the Veterans Administration. And so there is a precedent for how to do it. And if you look at Mr. Reid's tweets, he'll always mention prescription drugs, including after the vote on this bill. Do I need to ask you which way he voted? He voted against it. Why? Because the second largest contributor to his campaign fund is pharmaceutical companies. So we have an example of a congressman who is politically corrupt. And the political corruption in this country is at the core of so many of the problems that we're talking about. The theater over immigration. You know, why is it particularly egregious that Mr. Reid comment on an immigration issue? Immigration is federal law. You know who does federal law? Not Andrew Cuomo, Congress. And in 2013, there was a comprehensive immigration law brought to the House by Republicans in the Senate. And what did Mr. Reid do? Talk to the hand, pushed it back, didn't do anything, precipitated this crisis, and then uses it in order to stimulate his political theater with Cuomo in order to maintain this congressional campaign tactic. So he voted against that H.R. 3 bill in exactly the way that I hope voters in this district start to recognize how he operates. He'll say anything to you face to face. And then he turns around and votes against the needs of the people in this district. The price of prescription drugs is totally out of sight. We need help in that. It would help millions of people if we could get that bill passed through now the Senate and then have the president sign it. But don't hold your breath, because the pharmaceutical industry is playing people like Tom Reed like a puppet.
We're going to take a quick break, check the forecast. We'll be back in just a moment with Democrat congressional candidate Tracy Mitrano. Stay with us.
Did you know that the IRS is getting more aggressive these days and they're using private collection agencies to track you down? Don't wait. If you owe more than $10,000, then you need to take action. Take advantage of the Fresh Start Initiative, a program in place that can help you now. If you qualify, you can save thousands. Call about the government program designed to help you and call Oxford Tax, the Fresh Start experts. If you qualify, they will stop the IRS collection agencies from coming after you within 24 hours. Oxford Tax has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and will fight to get you the best deal possible. Get the break you deserve and call about the Fresh Start Initiative or even a settlement now. Call Oxford Tax now at 800-549-8040. Hurry, or it will just get worse. Let Oxford Tax stop the IRS from targeting you within 24 hours. Call our helpline now at 800-549-8040. That's 800-549-8040. It's important that you take action before programs change. Call Oxford Tax at 800-549-8040. 800-549-8040.
Checking in this morning with meteorologist Rob Carolyn. Rob, the good news is we did not get as much snow as expected.
No, we did not, Brian. I mean, there were parts of the state that did okay. I look across parts of western New York to our west, and they had as much as 6 inches of snow out near Preston. But generally, it was more a lighter snowfall than we were thinking. I'm looking at a lot of places right now, generally about a 1 to 3 inch snowfall. As I look through the data right now, I really can't find anybody who did really well around the region. Most of the snowfall totals I'm looking at generally just around an inch. Addison reporting about an inch. Corning was even less than that. They had half an inch. But then you get out towards Sullivan County, and there was 5 and 6 inches of snowfall. So all depends where you are, but it was a little bit lighter than what we thought. And any additional snowfall today, Brian, is on the light side. It's generally under an inch. Temperatures are going to be about 35 to 40. Sunrise this morning was about 7:09. Tonight it's going to set at 5:40. Now it looks like we'll see some snow showers tonight. Any accumulations from the snow showers are less than an inch. Quite cold tonight, 5 to 10 above. We're into some very cold air tomorrow. Lots of clouds, limited sun, and a high of 15 to 20. Clear 0 to 5 above tomorrow night. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll start with sunshine, finish the day with some clouds, 25 to 30. We'll get temperatures into the 30s for Sunday.
Back on with Democrat Tracy Mitrano, who's running for Congress against Congressman Tom Reed. Tracy Mitrano, in the last segment, I read off some of your Twitter statements, and we talked about your town halls in the district. On the issues, let's start out with one that you brought up in the last segment there. Immigration, wondering what you think should be done in terms of immigration. And did you have any thoughts on the green light law in New York State as well?
Well, as you know, that is a state law, and it would document people who are undocumented insofar as in an undocumented status, they don't qualify for a driver's license. On the plus side, I think it creates better roads and safer roads for us because people are documented, and then we can maintain a record of their driving habits. And, you know, if they are unsafe drivers for any combination of violations, then we can keep track of that and act accordingly. I think what some people, the other side, resent, and I get it in its essence, but hear me out, is these people came in so-called illegally, and now they're going to get a foot in the door, so to speak, to being normalized into American society. This is where I invoke the larger context, Brian, of the failure of both Republican and Democratic administrations to address the immigration problem for 25 or 30 years now. The last time we had comprehensive immigration reform was in 1965. I was in second grade then. And we are still living under a rubric that obviously makes no sense. So both Republican Democratic administrations have been allowing this tide of immigration, especially from Central America, coming into this country. Why? Well, employers must like it. I know that our farmers in this area need those workers. And we have all kicked the can down the road. And how are we dealing with it at this point? There are 14 million undocumented people in this country. Just think of what it would look like to round up 14 million people and try to deport them. It echoes of Germany in the 1930s. I'm sorry. But I think somewhere this country has to take some degree of responsibility for having kicked the can down the road. People are coming in. The employers want them. The agricultural sector wants them. As far as I know, the agricultural sector wants them documented. But the federal government has not been responsible to do exactly that. And that's why I mentioned this 2013 moment when, because it's President Obama, because it is something that has bipartisan support in the Senate, the House GOP, of which Reid is a distinct member, puts his hand up and they won't even bring it to committee. They won't even talk about it. So, again, the word disingenuous comes up. As a country, we have to deal with this issue. And unfortunately, the failure to deal with it devolves down into the state level, sanctuary cities, green light laws. Let's all together, Democrat and Republican people, push the issue back up to where it belongs, which is Congress. If we do it here in this district, we shine a light on Tom Reed's negligence in this area and his willingness to use such a combustive issue to bring fear and divide people in the district. That is.
With that, Tracy, just because of time constraints, we do have to go. We've been talking to Democrat Tracy Mitrano, who's running against Congressman Tom Reed. Tracy Mitrano, thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Nice talking with you, Brian. Thanks again.